Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar on Russian corporate actions reform, global standards and transparency, hosted on the Euroclear webinar channel and broadcasted live on Thursday, 30th of June 2016. So welcome, my name is Frank Slagmolen and with my team here at Euroclear, I've been deeply involved in the various steps that the Russian capital market has taken over the past years in their journey towards ease of access and more Euroclearability for both fixed income and equities. Clearly, the reform that will be discussed today is an important step still needed to fully achieve that. I will facilitate today's webinar, which will last approximately 30 minutes. Should you miss any part of it, you can access a recorded version on the Euroclear website shortly after the broadcast finishes. For those of you attending the live webinar, you can send us questions via the feedback option on your screen. We will try and answer your questions at the end of the session, or we'll revert back to you afterwards. So let me start by welcoming our two speakers of the day, Maria Krasnova, Deputy Chair of the Executive Board of NSD, the Russian National CSD, and Denis Spirin, responsible for corporate governance issues at Prosperity Capital Management. The format of today's webinar will be that Maria will be going through a very interesting slide deck about the Russian corporate action reform, key things to know about and things that are going to happen. And I will then continue with a small Q&A with Denis to give us some insights from the asset manager angle and give us some views on how investors are looking at the reform that is going to happen. So let us first now listen to Maria's presentation. Allow me to switch to her slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce you the forthcoming changes in the Russian securities market. The changes are aimed at substantial enhancement in the corporate actions area. The new law that establishes legal grounds for new corporate actions practices becomes effective tomorrow on July the 1st, which means that all corporate actions initiated starting from tomorrow will be conducted differently. I'm happy to explain you what is going on and what you should expect. The following objectives of the reform were identified to address the flaws of the current corporate actions processing practices. Firstly, to eliminate paper document circulation. Secondly, to create the single source of reliable corporate actions information that will be seen as official and will provide corporate actions information timely and efficiently. Thirdly, to implement a unified approach to corporate actions processing and therefore to create conditions for further automation and straight-through processing of corporate actions. And finally, to empower custodians to act on behalf of their clients without powers of attorneys or any other additional documents. All these changes are meant to reduce direct and indirect costs, improve process transparency, and therefore reduce the perceived risks and participation. I would like to highlight four key elements of the reform. First of all, there will be no more preliminary compilation of the lists of securities holders. Such lists will occur incrementally as a result of processing of disclosure instructions and e-proxy voting instructions provided by custodians not later than up to 2 days before the general meeting. Second element, the Russian CSD becomes an official center of corporate actions information that receives information electronically directly from issuers and then distributes it through its participants and on its website. In case of any discrepancy between information distributed by CSD and any other information, CSD's information will prevail. Third element, participation in general meetings of securities holders will be possible in 4 ways. 2 of them remain the same: actual presence of securities holder at the meeting and sending a paper ballot by post. And 2 more are added: e-proxy voting, sending an electronic ballot through custodians, and e-voting, direct voting of an investor via dedicated website. Fourth element, customers of custodians will only be able to participate in corporate actions through their custodians, which will have to send electronic instructions through the intermediated chain up to the issuer. No more power of attorneys or any other documents will be needed. In order to ensure that both domestic and international infrastructure benefit from the reform, and to make application of a straight-through processing wherever possible, we decided to design new processes based on international standards developed by the global securities industry. We also choose ISO format that supports automatic information processing. Even though ISO 20022 will become a basic standard for corporate actions processing in the Russian market, using of ISO 15022 will also be possible for our international constituencies. This slide reflects the difference between an old and the new system. We believe that the new system of corporate actions processing will remove the old system's intrinsic risks and costs as a result of a centralized and standardized corporate actions processing, increased automation, and provision of corporate actions-related services by professional securities market intermediaries. As I previously mentioned, a series of rights attached to securities will be exercised through custodians only. Please see the red heading that indicates respective corporate actions. In order for securities owners to participate in such corporate actions, they would need to instruct their custodians. Custodians will then prepare and send electronic instructions to issuers through the intermediated chain. Meanwhile, there still will be rights that could be exercised either through custodians electronically or personally by an investor by sending a mail to an issuer. The green heading indicates the list of respective rights and corporate actions. It is important to understand when new corporate actions processes should become applicable. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the ongoing corporate actions will not be affected. They were started in accordance with the old procedure, and they should be finished in accordance with the old procedure. Only corporate actions initiated on the 1st of July 2016 and later should be conducted as provided by the new procedures. This slide gives you an impression of how these principles is applied in case of specific corporate actions. For example, general meetings convocation should occur on the 1st of July for the general meeting to be conducted in accordance with this new mode. For the market participants to be able to distinguish between an old and the new ways of corporate actions processing, NSD's notification regarding corporate actions will contain specific reference if it is an old way to be applied. Before I finish my presentation, I would like to thank Euroclear for the opportunity to present you the forthcoming Russian corporate actions reform. We deeply appreciate Euroclear's help and support with regard to the developments in the Russian financial market infrastructure. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maria, for that very comprehensive presentation on the road to the reform and the coming transition period. Let us now switch to the asset manager who was willing to speak on this webinar, Dennis Pirin from Prosperity Capital Management. Dennis, in your view of asset manager, what do you think are the benefits that investors get out of this reform?
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for your question, Frank. And generally, we already feel some benefits from this reform because part of this reform we already have in place. And since 2015, we have electronic voting allowed. So now to vote, you may use electronic ballot. Your custodian doesn't need power attorney, paper power attorney from you to vote on your behalf. So you, investor, can interact directly only with its custodian, and no interaction with the issuer. And as soon as your custodian sends your votes to the register, they are delivered immediately. So the process now paperless, swift, and efficient. Also, the second part, which is also in place now since 2015, it's that all general shareholders meetings documents, information, and materials are sent in an electronic way to every shareholder. So it's also swift and efficient, and you receive all materials 20 days before the meeting just by email. So it's like part of the reform that we already use for more than a year now. And as soon as, starting from tomorrow, we will have other corporate actions also available in electronic format. I think it will be to the great benefit of investors, and will make our life, let's say, much easier, because no more paper applications, no more paper power attorneys. This reduces costs, reduces time, and all interaction will be just with your custodian, who will interact on your behalf with registers in an electronic way. So it's quite positive, and I think it's one of the best examples of how this works in the world. And also, maybe also important to say that starting from 2015, Russian law and Russian securities accounting system recognizes foreign nominee holders concept. So as opposing to Russian registered custodians. So if you are a client of some foreign nominee holder, it's important that this custodian discloses itself as a foreign nominee holder. In that case, you as a client will be disclosed to the register in advance before, for example, general shareholder meeting, and you will be allowed to vote individually, just as you want, in electronic way. So you as opposing to comparing to previous situation when omnibus accounts cannot vote because there is no split voting for omnibus accounts. Now it's important. Now it's possible for every investor who holds shares under foreign nominee to vote individually, also in an electronic way.
So all good benefits from the reform and how it was implemented over these past years, and with this final step to make sure that all voluntary corporations can benefit from the same benefits as were applicable to proxy voting. So very good news. Perhaps as a final question to Maria, as this is such a big change for the market and all of its stakeholders, I was wondering how you would assess the market's readiness for all of these changes.
You're right, Frank. The scale of the reform is really substantial. It involves all market participants without exception. So it is very important for us to work in close concert with all kinds of market participants. We've been testing our systems and our new services for more than 20 weeks now. All registers are deeply involved in all testing procedures, and the vast majority of our participants are also involved. I have to note that we have different groups of market participants and different groups of clients. Some of our clients would prefer usage of SWIFT and automated means of communications. Mostly those who are holding large volumes of assets within NSD. Although we also have other participants who do not hold larger volumes, however, who also need to be prepared and to be ready to start corporate actions processing as soon as necessary. So in order for different groups of market participants to feel comfortable, we developed different channels of communication. Some of them allow automatic information processing. Some of them allow manual input of information, which then will be transformed into ISO documents and then sent to NSD. So we believe that the readiness is there, and market participants actually are aware for more than a year that these changes are coming. So we believe that we will process the forthcoming corporate actions as we planned and that we are ready.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Maria. We received some more technical questions via the web channel, so I propose that you would send those to the email address that we put at the end of the slide deck for any further questions that we can then deal with separately. For now, I wanted to thank the delegates and the audience, and of course the speakers, for today's webinar. The slide deck that was used and that Maria presented will be made available on the channel in the PDF format after the presentation as well, for everybody to download. Again, as mentioned before, if there's any further question, please do not hesitate to get in touch. Our contact details are at the end of the presentation. And as I mentioned, the webinar has been recorded and will be available more or less within an hour after the live broadcast on the Eurocare website. So thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye.